Ebenezer, let's get your views on leadership. Who do you admire globally in terms of their leadership skills?
I think there's still one individual I admire in terms of their leadership skills, but they draw strengths from various individuals I've watched operate over the years. And they'll take me to the more flamboyant, to the most conservative, and the most disciplined. And I derive my strength from watching those in action.
How would you define your leadership skills?
Very basic, back to basics. Understanding what it means to lead people. And understanding that as a leader, if you don't have followers who are naturally engaged and with whom you want the hearts and minds for a common cause, you never make it.
Let me ask you that question in a different way. If you're hiring somebody, what do you look for?
Energy. Technical skills you can learn. Energy and passion for the role they want to be involved in.
And accountability, how important is that to you in the scheme of things?
I think you define accountability. The areas of zero tolerance. If you get a job, there'll be a defined job description, and that comes with some accountabilities. And that's a zero tolerance that you get. But if you get an individual who is ambitious, energetic, and passionate about a role, you generally do derive value from such an individual. And that in turn leads to world-class performance.
And if you hire an energized or energetic person, how do you keep that person energized and keep them within the organization? Because that must be a key challenge. Once you've got the talent, how do you hold on to it?
I think we have what I would, maybe this is a case when modesty is no longer a virtue, where we define as world-class engagement procedures within Standard Chartered. It's part of a family. There are core values within Standard Chartered, and once one buys into those values, it becomes very difficult for them to disengage. And that we take pride in and very passionate about those values. It is a lifetime experience being in Standard Chartered. It's a lively work environment, and I'm sure the best and brightest would find natural space within us.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Well, I probably see myself celebrating a legacy that has been extremely positive. A legacy, why? Because within the corporate world, I have managed mature businesses, startup businesses. I've been an entrepreneur within a multinational complex. I have groomed people across the world. I mentor individuals in Qatar, in Singapore. I've served on the boards of various subsidiaries of Standard Chartered, varying from Nigeria to Pakistan, and I find myself transforming experiences across the African space. So I find myself sitting back and saying, it has been a very successful career, and I've added value, transformed experiences across Africa.
I want you to come back to your experience of Greenfield's operations on the continent and how that differs from taking a mature business, as you've alluded to, and repositioning that for additional growth. What would you say is the key differential between Greenfields and a startup business and reorganizing a mature organization?
I think the unknowns of a Greenfield experience are what's unique with Greenfield businesses. I'll give you an example. In Cote d'Ivoire, I started a business from scratch. 3 days after I got the license, we had the coup d'etat. And we still managed to build a bank that today has stood the test of time and is producing record results in Cote d'Ivoire.
Based in the capital, Yamoussoukro?
No, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan. We have a head office in Plateau, and the business center is actually in Abidjan. The political capital is in Yamoussoukro. But during the most difficult days, we started a unit that today is a leading financial institution in Cote d'Ivoire. I employed the first employee of the bank in Cote d'Ivoire. Brand recognition was zero. 6 months into our experiences, the brand was known across the space, and the president of the country inaugurated the bank in 2001.
How did you get that right? How did you bring the brand to life within a very short time frame? You say 6 months.
I had the right people, and we were ambitious, and did what it mattered. You know, what mattered then was not a question of sitting on our laurels and say we have the capital and the liquidity, but engaging the broader population of Cote d'Ivoire. We dealt with the key corporate entities in Cote d'Ivoire, and beyond the corporate entities, we got to understand our communities extremely well. I think one thing that differentiates StandChart from all other companies is the fact that we quickly establish a social relevance in communities in which we live and work in. That is what drives brand value, and that is what makes a difference for us, and obviously made a difference for us in Cote d'Ivoire.
Talk to us now about reorganizing a mature business.
Ghana, June 2001, a very mature business, been in the country for 110 years, with a few problems, because at a macroeconomic level, the country had a lot of difficulties. So the first thing I think we did then was, first of all, take stock of our bank, which we did, and did professionally, and then got to understand the government's broader objectives. And we're able to reconcile the government's objectives to our objectives that enable us define our engagement with the private sector. And we did forge partnerships between the government and the private sector to transform our experiences. And that made Ghana become a unique experience for me as an individual. Because when I went to Ghana, if we move to results, the stock price of the bank was approximately $1.05. It was 1.5 US dollars. When I left, the stock price was in the neighborhood of 38 US dollars. I succeeded in transforming experiences and making Ghanaians US dollar millionaires.
Ebenezer, you've obviously played the corporate game very, very well. And I go back to the fact that you joined Standard Chartered Bank in 1986. You are now the CEO of Standard Chartered Bank South Africa. What is your advice to other business people trying to get ahead in the corporate game?
It's very easy. First of all, be very clear on what your ambitions are as a professional, and look for a corporate entity that has similar ambitions. It's very simple for me, because Standard Chartered at the time migrated from an OECD-based bank to a bank that focused on emerging markets. Similarly, my ambition was to become a star in emerging markets. And the fact that I was able to reconcile the ambition of the bank with my personal ambitions made me perform without a complex and kept me forever energized and passionate about what I did.
Is money important to you?
Money helps. It pays the bills. But I think what's most important to me is having a legacy that stands the test of time. And money doesn't always stand the test of time.
And what about the balance with your business career and your personal life? Would you say you've got that right?
I think that's a legacy I'm talking about. I've got that very, very right. And I'm proud.
Well, you're going to have to share that secret in terms of how you've got that balance right, because there are a number of executives who've sat in this chair and said somewhere along the line you've got to make a choice between either your personal or your business life. How have you got the balance right?
By having the right communications with the family to start with. My wife understands clearly and did endorse that ambition. I'll give you an example. In 2000, I was transferred to Hong Kong, and my wife didn't want to go to Hong Kong. And it was a clear family decision. I turned down the opportunity. It became a big conversation around the space in Standard Chartered. And finally, my bosses did appreciate the fact that it's important to work on the work-life balance.
Did that set you back in your career at all, the fact that you didn't take the position in Hong Kong?
No. Because not going to Hong Kong gave me a chance to be an entrepreneur within a multinational corporate. That's when I went to Cote d'Ivoire and did what I did in Cote d'Ivoire.
Is there anything to this point, any decision that you've made that you regret or see perhaps as a mistake along the way?
Actually, very few, really. If I had any to regret, I'd say I recruited a colleague once who was a good friend, and it took me more than 6 months to fire him, and that was in Zimbabwe, but I finally did.
With a lesson to be learned, don't hire friends of yours?
No. Make the right decisions at the right time, irrespective of the relationship you have with the individual. That's the lessons to be learned.
Coming back to South Africa and the problems that are unique to South Africa, what are your views?
It's a rainbow nation where diversity and inclusion is very important, and I think we play a lead role in the D&I space in South Africa. If you look at my bank, ladies account for approximately 50% of the workforce, and within the management team are very influential. If you look at the mix, there's a really diverse staff complement. We have guys from India, from Pakistan, from Nigeria, from Cameroon like myself, from South Africa. In South Africa you have those of Indian origin and the Africans, the blacks, etc. It is a real melting pot. And what we have done is institutionalize the basics of diversity and inclusion. We've made it a more inclusive environment where you progress based on merit. It is not an affirmative action exercise.
Soccer World Cup 2010, are you a soccer fan?
I am, naturally. I come from Cameroon. But this time around, I'm a Bafana supporter.
What impact do you think World Cup 2010 is going to have on the South African economy? 6 weeks, is it really going to make that much of a difference?
Well, a week makes a difference. People spend money where they're supposed to spend it. I foresee a positive multiplier effect we wouldn't have had if we don't have the numbers. It's a numbers game. The more people who come into the country, the more money is going to be spent. It will be a positive multiplier effect in South Africa, and that inevitably must help the South African economy.
What's your view on the political leadership of the country? Do you have a view that you're prepared to share with us?
Well, I have a lot of respect for the political leadership of South Africa. I think South Africa, the governance standards here could be used as a model in many other African countries. And credit goes to South Africans and the way they've managed their space. Conversations are open and honest, and individuals are willing to take positions, but at the same time realize that generally you would have to go through a debate before decisions are made. And I find the government playing a very proactive role in facilitating conversations that eventually, I believe, would lead not only to a more stable South Africa, but a more stable continent of Africa.